Good afternoon and welcome to AfterWords, where members and followers of the Shrines of the Black Madonna gather to use our intellectual and spiritual minds to discuss today's message as it relates to the Black experience. You can find today's message and others posted on YouTube and Facebook every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this event and all others from the Shrines of the Black Madonna with friends and families and other like-minded people. I am your moderator today. I am Ashanti Kafi, and I am joined on this beautiful panel of people with Brother Kafing from Atlanta, Sister Alma from Virginia, and Brother Olatunji, who was also from Atlanta. Today, our message was delivered by Bishop Mwenda at Shrine 9 in Atlanta, Georgia. And the message was Burn Your Boats Moments. And that sermon was delivered from Matthew chapter 4, verses 17 through 20. I want to start by saying for me, the message was a call to action. And I thought that it was a burn your boats moment, right? It was one of those defining moments where you have to decide. He was invoking us to decide what are we going to do? It's how to recognize that pivotal moment in our own lives and what are we going to do about it today. Brother Kafing, I see you nodding with me in agreement. What are your thoughts on today's sermon? And you are on mute, my brother.
My man, thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here on AfterWords. My thoughts on that from personal experience as being on the what we would call the cadre level of the Shrines of the Black Madonna. And that was the level where you were actually in the presence of Peter and Andrew, who were the two disciples that Jesus called, and they dropped everything and they followed Jesus. And I guess the message is, when you really boil it down to the realities of life, there's not a lot of people that are willing to follow Jesus even today, because when you get that call, it's calling for you to drop everything, the job, your family, everything, because not just for the sake of just doing it, but because you're seeking the kingdom. And the whole idea is when the kingdom of heaven comes into being, and that's something that we create. It's not something that falls out of the skies. It's not magic. Then once the kingdom of heaven is created, that takes care of all your needs. It takes care of your housing, the food you eat, everything. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to get a lot of people, and you haven't gotten a lot of people to be able to do that. And that's why Jesus said, when you come follow me, this is not a game. This is for real. And you have to, and it'll show up. Judas was one who fell off the block as he betrayed the movement. But the movement is real. And when you get that call, you have to go all in.
And when you say kingdom of heaven, we're talking about the kingdom right here on earth.
Right here on earth.
Right here on earth. I had the honor of speaking with Bishop Mwenda, who won't be able to join us today, about his sermon. And he gave me a little bit of context around the history of this. And this is when, right after Jesus was first baptized, and he had spent, the 40 days in the wilderness. And then he starts to travel and preach his message. And if I'm not mistaken, if I'm reading the text correctly, Peter, also known as Simon, and Andrew were the first disciples. And when I think about that, and as given in the sermon, we understand that Peter and Andrew knew something of Jesus. They knew, the pre-tellings of his coming. Perhaps they had heard some of his teachings, heard stories about him. But beyond that, there seems to have been an intuition that would be the right thing to do, right? A feeling, a connection of what Jesus represented, of the possibilities that could come with following this person. There seems to me that there would have been this feeling, this connection already there within them, right? And so to stop what you know, stop the life you know, and to follow someone is the birthing of a seed that is already there. Yes. Right. And so I think he called that the dimension of possibility is that realm that they began to enter. And what that must really look like for someone in this day and time, which you kind of touched on, Brother Kafim, where that's not an easy thing for people to do. But when there's a stirring in your soul, when there's that spiritual connection that's already there for you, when that feeling arises, that's your burn the boats moment. That is either I'm going to do this, or I'm going to continue to ignore this feeling that I have, this stirring in my spirit. And what we're being called for is complete action, right? Is to move forward with the only guarantee that God is on our side. Mm-hmm. And, that is a question that we have to answer today, right now, in this moment, as we are on this call together. That's a question that we have to answer. What am I going to do? Am I going to follow God, or am I not? And so, Brother Olatunji, I wonder what you think about that.
Well, I think it was
the right path there.
Yeah, I think it was another powerful message by the bishop. As we draw a parallel to the biblical story of Jesus, I think it's important that we remember that this is the Black nation Israel being oppressed by a Greco-Roman culture that was foreign to them, coming into their land and oppressing the Black nation Israel. And at that time, Jesus and others had to develop some type of analysis of what was going on, and then some type of evaluation in terms of how to deal with this. Mm-hmm. And it came to a conclusion that reached a no turning back moment, that we cannot continue to act as if this is not happening. We have a clear understanding that we are being brutally oppressed, and we must be on a mission to free ourselves from that oppression. That is the conclusion, the no turning back mission. If we are to save our children, our women, our way of life, then we cannot act as if this is not happening. We have to move forward and do something about it. We have to come up with new strategies and new ideas. And that, in my opinion, is acting on God power. For us as Black Christian nationalists, We believe God is cosmic energy and creative intelligence. The cosmic energy is the reality of life experience all around us. It's an energy process. It can be positive or it can be negative. Of course, at this time, that was a lot of negative energy impacting upon the Black nation Israel. So it was necessary to develop some positive energy, and energy is a form of action. So in order to bring about a change, we just cannot stand still and hope change will happen. We have to move forward with some positive energy action based on analysis and evaluation to change our reality. We're in the same situation today as Black people in America, and as Black Christian nationalists, we have an analysis of our condition, which is historical and present day, and an evaluation, and then we draw a conclusion. And based on that analysis and conclusions, we get involved in action. No turning back to create a new reality for our people.
So I hear you saying that change is an action spirit.
Amen.
And before we make any change, we must first understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, so that we can proceed in a way with the energy of God that best serves not just ourselves, but our people.
Amen.
We have a message from a YouTuber, Eric Jackson, who says the current decline of the Black community can be traced to the pulling away from the genuine Black church and biblical principles. And I think, Brother Eric, that is, the message of today's sermon is to bring us back to that, right? To be, as Brother Latunji said, we here at the Shrine of Black Madonna, we have the analysis of our condition, and we are aware of that. And so it is our message to our people to come back to just that, to understand our history and how that affects us in the way that we navigate the world today. Sister Alma, I want to bring you into the conversation and get an understanding of your thoughts of today's topic.
Well, I was a little challenged because also I could think about when he talked about burning bridges. I've had bridges burnt, lost, fired from jobs or lost housing, but I was trying to think in terms of me burning a bridge, because it's too, I think that in terms of I guess I'll call it the movement, it's the alignment with God's purpose is like a daily, almost not even more than that. You can have a situation come up and you want to do such and such a thing, and then that action is not in alignment with God, and so you don't do it. So I feel that search or that access to the spirit, or what he called the fourth dimension, is something that we work on. Some people work on it with meditation and whatnot, but I do think it's something that is done, on regularly. But as far as making that decision, like to follow me, that like when we first joined the shrine, it might have meant one thing, but then as things happen and you have experiences and things come up, then it's something that you're doing again, because so I think it's an ongoing.
Absolutely. So that I think that call to action is that burning the boats moment, if you will, is something that comes up time and time again. And it may not happen once a day. It may happen several times a day where you have to recenter yourself and get connected with spirit in order to hear that you're in alignment, right? So that you can have the discernment to make the correct decision for yourself, for your community. Bishop Mwenda used the example of the explorer Cortez, who was searching for treasure, and had a pivotal moment where he decided for himself and for his group that they were not going back. They had been on a journey and arrived to where they believed the treasure would be, and they would not go back to what they had known before, right? They would not only would they not go back, it was also a strategy to trick the enemy into thinking that they should not follow them to this place, right? So not only was it a commitment to move forward, it was a strategy on what they weren't going to do anymore, right? What they weren't going to allow in anymore. There was this pushback of the enemy. And I think when Bishop Mwenda was talking about removing barriers to our thinking. So in the shrine, we are committed to the Black nation, right? That's our culture, right? We are in full support of that. And so the barriers that he mentioned was thinking that integration is going to work, or thinking that our enemy is going to like us or love us one day. And removing those barriers opens up the realm of possibility that what we envision is possible, right? And so I think that that's a strategy that we have to employ every day, that we have to remind ourselves of every day, that we have to get centered in with God every day on, is how are we going to move forward? We were having a conversation this morning about the foundation on which we guide ourselves. And I think that's a pretty useful one. And Sister Alma, I see you with your hand raised.
Well, the one thing I was thinking about when you stated about discernment, I think that's a real weakness. I know that I have discernment in terms of, I feel that there are some things that we could see, or I don't know what I should say, should see, or something around us in the world that we're not cognizant of. And it's just that I think because we live in a world of broken vows, people break their words, people, break their vows. They don't say what they mean. We live in that world, and a boat to burn is to not live in that world, but be cognizant of how that world is affecting us. I mean, you almost have to be on guard to not fall into it, with something like, well, that's the way it's done, or that's the way the world is. So I think the discernment is a muscle or a spirit that really needs to be built up in the Black church, in our church. And I think that discernment is seeking that spirit consistently and no matter what.
Brother K. Fing, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I was just, thinking about the conversation, and I'm glad that Walamu Olatunji gave some context to what was going on at the time when those brothers were they were fishermen, and even Bishop Mwenda talked about how they were well off. Peter had a mansion by the Sea of Galilee, so they weren't wretched. They were well-to-do brothers. but they were called into something because the movement had been going on for forever. Not only John the Baptist, but the Maccabees, who are in the book of the Maccabees, how they fought against Greek oppression. That was what Jesus was calling them into. So he had an alternative for them to invest in. So to break that down to everyday life of brothers and sisters today, that means being your best self in terms of your diet, what you eat, um, raising the level of consciousness, how you see the world, um, educationally, do you have an African-centered education, something that's going to connect you to the history of our people, and also help us to build that kingdom of heaven here on earth. So, in reference to what my sister was talking about and what Wallama was talking about, and connected to the sermon, this is about us being the best that we can be every day, and we're called in to be the best that we can be, so that we can build an alternative lifestyle. This is about a lifestyle. It's not something that you just do on Sunday and then you go back to doing whatever you were doing. It's an everyday lifestyle, and that's what Jesus was calling the disciples into. And that's what I believe. Excuse me, folks. And that's what I believe the shrines of the Black. That's what I know the shrines of the Black Madonna is calling brothers and sisters into a lifestyle that's geared towards building a kingdom of heaven here on earth.
Amen. And I think that kind of answers Sister's almost question about how do we build that discernment muscle? How and when do we know to follow God? And it's by doing that, by doing the what we term as the right things. It's your spiritual practice, it's your eating, it's your educational sources, it's your prayer, your fasting, your meditation. All of those things allow us to recenter, reconnect with our source, and that muscle of discernment, I believe, just becomes stronger and stronger. And Brother Olatunji, I want to bring you in on some of this.
Yes, again, the parallel is an oppressed nation struggling for freedom and self-determination. And I guess, first of all, we look at things oftentimes from an individual perspective on how the society that we live in affects us personally. And if we are honest about some type of analysis and evaluation, we begin to realize that it's not just me, but it's us, that my people are suffering the same problems that I am suffering in this society. And then based on that analysis, we want to come to some conclusions. What can we do about it? And so we develop a strategy. And then we have to evaluate that strategy. We as a people have attempted to peacefully coexist with our oppressors, following a strategy of integration, and say, okay, let us become equal citizens in this society with equal rights. But at some point, we have to have an analysis. How effective has that been for us? And if we are honest with ourselves, we can see that there are some great limitations in terms of what that has done for us as a people. We're still being shot down in the street. We're still being choked out in the street. We're still being exploited and oppressed. We still don't have self-determination to deal with the reality of Black life in America, of food, clothing, education. So we then have to say, we can't stand still with this. We got to change our strategy, and we got to come up with something new. We have to have a new mission that will bring about a new reality that we're looking for. And when we come to that conclusion, we have to move forward. We can't stand still. Right. And we move forward with a new sense of awareness to begin to understand that we cannot depend on those who oppress and exploit us for our salvation. We have to organize ourselves as a people and begin to implement the institutions that are essential to our own needs. We got to feed ourselves. We have to house ourselves. We have to educate ourselves as a people. And we can't go back. We can't turn back because that awareness is already based on an analysis and evaluation.
Amen. Amen. And so we have to do the analysis, study our history, know what has worked and what doesn't work. Look at what's happening today, connect into that God power, and then we will have the discernment on what we need to do next. In what way do we move forward? How do we follow God here and now? How do we recommit ourselves and have that same burn the boats moment today? This has been an extraordinary conversation. I'm sure we can go on and on with this for hours and hours. I believe that what we have said here, I pray, has been powerful and has opened people's minds and hearts to want to explore more for themselves and about how they can contribute to not just their individual lives, but contribute to the group as a whole. I want to thank you to my panelists for joining us today and lending your wealth of knowledge. Brother Latunji is always a teacher in every settings. I truly appreciate that about you, Brother Kate Bean. As a long member of the Shrine, you bring the passion of our mission. Sister Alma, you are like me and where we are thinking about, how do I contribute to this space? What do I bring and how can I be most effective? So thank you to everybody. And thank you to our audience for spending your time with us today. We hope we gave you something to take with you. And please remember to like, subscribe, and share this event and all others from the Shrines of the Black Madonna with your friends, family, and like-minded people. And have a beautiful day, everyone.